So I want to use this first example to teach and equip you with the fundamentals of using the VLOOKUP function. As you can see, what I have here is a table of data that relates to products. So you can see I have the product names, I have the product numbers, I have the quantities, the prices per unit, and I have the cost as well. What I want to do is I want to retrieve the quantities from this table for these respective product numbers, and I want to place them in these cells right next to the product numbers here. So you can see that this quantity column is inside of the table, and we want to retrieve those quantities here. To do that, we're going to use the VLOOKUP function to automate the process of retrieving those items, those quantities in this case. To do that, as with any other function, we're going to click inside of our cell and we'll type the equal sign. And next we need to type the function name. In this case, it's VLOOKUP. So we'll type that. And then we'll include an opening parenthesis. Now, as you can see, when we include that opening parenthesis, VLOOKUP is asking us for 4 different pieces of information. And it needs these 4 pieces of information to retrieve the value or the item or the items that you want to retrieve. These are also called the arguments of the VLOOKUP function. Now, I know that if you are new to using VLOOKUP, this can definitely come across as a bit overwhelming, but rest assured, I'm going to walk you through each of these components that the VLOOKUP function asks you for. So, to give you a better visual understanding of using VLOOKUP, I'm going to bring up the function menu. And to do that, I'm going to click this button right here where you see Insert Function. And when I click that, that brings up the function menu. As you can see, the first thing that VLOOKUP asks us for is the lookup value. Now, this lookup value enables VLOOKUP to find that value that you want. The lookup value has to be in the leftmost column of your table. So I'm looking for the quantities for these product numbers. And as you can see, the product numbers are in the leftmost column of the table. In this case, the first product number that I'm looking for is product number 102. And you can see that's this product right here. And what VLOOKUP will do is it'll look inside of this row in order to retrieve that item that you want. But before it can do that, we need to supply it with some more information, and we're going to be demonstrating that shortly. So first of all, let's click inside of this space here next to lookup value, and let's include our product number as our lookup value. The next thing that VLOOKUP is going to ask you for is the table array. What you need to keep in mind here is your table array has to include 2 things. It needs to include your lookup value, and it also needs to include the answer that you want. To keep things safe, what I'll do, I'll click inside of this space here next to table array, inside of the window, and I will highlight the entire table. That'll ensure that I capture both the lookup value as well as the answer that I want. The next argument that VLOOKUP asks us for is the call index num. Now, what is this all about? Well, recall earlier that I said that VLOOKUP is going to use this lookup value. In this case, the first lookup value is product number 102, and it's going to look inside of the row of that lookup value, and it knows where it's looking because we gave it this table array, which is all of these cells here, and that includes both our lookup value and the answer that we want. But for VLOOKUP to find that answer, we need to specify the column that the answer is in. It knows the row, but it doesn't know the column number. So what's the column number that our answer is in? Well, we're looking for the quantity. And if we look inside of our table here, the way that we will count this is going to be column number 1, this is column number 2, and this is column number 3. So let's include a 3 here. That's our column. And then the final argument VLOOKUP asks us for is called range lookup. Now, what is this all about? Well, you have two options here. You can type true. If you type true, what VLOOKUP is going to do is it's going to search for an approximate or the closest match to your lookup value, and it's going to return the corresponding answer. Whereas if you type false, it'll look exactly for your lookup value. It'll find that exact lookup value if it's there, and it's going to return the corresponding answer. Now, most of the times, you'd probably find yourself looking for an exact lookup value, so you'd probably type false. But later on in our training here, we're going to demonstrate how to use approximate matches, but don't worry about that for now. Let's just use the most common use of VLOOKUP to find an exact match. So we're going to type false. If we click OK, as you can see there, VLOOKUP returns the answer 8. And if we look inside of the table here, you can see that for product 102, the answer is indeed 8 for the quantity. So what I want to do now is I want to apply this VLOOKUP formula here to these cells below. So basically, I'm trying to get VLOOKUP to find the answer that relates to product number 110, 117, and so forth. So I want to apply the formula below or copy it downwards. In order to do that in Excel, what you need to do is click the cell that contains your formula, and you want to position your cursor to this little box that you can see to the corner of the cell, and you want to see that the cursor turns into this dark looking plus sign icon, and you just click that cell and you drag it downwards. So you can see the VLOOKUP function has been applied to these values below. So for example, if we take a look at product number 110, we go here, product number 110, we can see that the quantity is 15. So VLOOKUP was able to get the correct quantity. And the same would have happened for these two product numbers as well. However, notice that these final two product numbers returns this item here that's in the form of a hash sign and an n then /e. And this is actually an error in Excel. It's an error sign. And what caused this error sign to occur is that VLOOKUP was unable to find our lookup value and the answer that we were looking for. Now, why did this happen? Well, let me explain. If we double click this cell, you can see here that our first reference, our lookup value G3, you can see that it's in this distinct color here, and you can see G3 highlighted in the same reference color. You can also see that the table array E3 to E47, that's also in its own distinct color, and you can see that that relates to this area here, which matches the color of the reference. Now pay close attention. Notice that this is G3, the lookup value, and the table array is E3 to E47. If we go to the cell below and we double click, notice that now the lookup value is G4, and now the table array is E4 to E48. So the references changed. So this is called relative referencing inside of Excel, and it's the way that referencing operates by default in Excel. If you copy a formula one cell downward, what Excel will do is it will change the row. It will increase the row by 1. If you were to go up, it would decrease the row by 1. If you were to go to the right or to the left, it would change the column number instead of the row number. And we're going to demonstrate that in the next video. So what happened when we reached to this reference, if we double click, you can see that the lookup value is G7. So that's correct. But the table array is where we're having an issue. Notice that now the table array is capturing from product number 104 all the way down. But notice that our lookup value is above the table array. Now, if you recall in the previous video, we mentioned that the table array has to include and capture our lookup value and the answer that we're looking for. But this definitely is not the case here. So to fix this, what we're going to do is we're going to double click in our first formula. And what we want to do is make this reference to the table array absolute. What an absolute reference is where your row as well as your column is going to be fixed. So our entire reference is going to be constant. It's not going to move when we copy the formula downward or if we copy it to the side. To do that, you want to highlight the reference and you want to press the key F4. You'll see a $ in front of the column and you'll also see a $ in front of the row. This indicates that those references are now fixed. So now, if we copy this formula all the way downward, and we can position our cursor here and double click to do that. Now you can see we get the correct answers. You can see we get 9, and the product number 100 does have a quantity of 9. And if you can click, the reason that we got it is because now our table array reference is fixed and it doesn't move when we copy our formula downwards. So very important concept. We're going to talk more about this in the next video. So I look forward to seeing you in that next video.